Here inside this range, we want to really talk about real life use and real life activity and what's going to take place in your range. Anybody can sell you a nice product, it looks good in the brochure, it's painted, it's brand new, but what does your building, what does your range system look like after it's been in a range like this that sees heavy Taurus use, machine gun shooting, bullets going everywhere, not as controlled as a lot of marksmen would be shooting. And as we're talking about building construction, Jake, what kind of wall should we have inside the range?
We typically have what you see here. This is an 8-inch cinder block solid grout filled. So what that means is that every single cell inside these cinder blocks is filled solid with concrete, pumped clear full all the way to the top. And what that gives you is a typical level 8 or rifle rating on a range like this. We can also do this with a 6-inch solid concrete tilt up, and they're basically just come in panels, they stand them up and weld them together at the seams.
Jake, can we do any walls other than concrete or cinder block?
Absolutely. We've worked with ranges and facilities that have done retrofits and tenant improvements where they've had 2x6 or 2x4 frame walls with insulation, where we've come in and actually lined the walls with 3/8 or ½ inch AR500 plating to help utilize that for a ballistic rating for the exterior wall.
Right. Well, as you can see from this wall here, and this is probably a pretty extreme application, but as you can see, this has taken a lot of punishment because this is a machine gun range, and like I said, it's a lot of people shooting in here that probably haven't shot before. We can also see a good example of how the ceiling plate has protected the shots from going too high, and you can see the splatter coming down the wall where these bullets have impacted right at the joint of the wall and the ceiling plate, and they've been directed down to the floor and into the bullet trap. So this is a great example of not a sugar-coated application, but a range that has seen heavy use and still is very operational and is functioning very well.
Yes, Mike, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think this range sees about 2 to 3 million rounds per year per lane, which far exceeds the national industry standard of 1 million rounds per year. So I think it's safe to say there's a good 5 to 6 years of wear and tear on this range compared to a normal brick and mortar range at a different facility in a non-touristy environment.
Let's talk about ceiling height and the construction of a range. A lot of people have a lot of questions when they start investigating to put in a range as to how do I build my building and how do my ceiling plates go in and what are heights and what are dimensions. So what do we have here for heights, Jake, and what kind of angle do we have on our ceiling plates, and how are these implemented in the building to protect the ceiling?
So basically what you have is a ceiling plate that's set up on an angle from 8 foot to 10 foot, and what that does is it allows like Mike mentioned, the bullets to be deflected down into the bullet trap at a safe angle as to not cause any ricochets or backsplatter. As far as ceiling height goes, we want a minimum height typically of 10 foot to 11 foot. Anything higher than that, you end up having to close the thing off and isolate that for optimum HVAC airflow. And that's something that's just an additional expense. So if you can avoid that, great. If not, there's always that situation.
And as you can see in this range, that's what they have done. They have dropped the roof to approximately 11 feet. We've got the ceiling plates hanging from 10 foot to 8 foot. And as you can see, the plates are spaced out. So no matter where we are at the firing line, this is a static range, we shoot from the firing line. If a person was to lay on the floor and was to try to shoot up to the ceiling plates are laid out in a manner that they will always strike the ceiling plate, the bullet cannot get up and get to the ceiling, and the bullet's directed down range. So it makes for safety, but it also it lowers your costs as a range owner. You don't have to totally cover and encapsulate your whole roof with steel. The ceiling plates are laid out where if you're shooting from the firing line, then your ceiling is safe. Your light fixtures are protected. Your HVAC ductwork is protected. And even in this range here, you can see they have a fire sprinkler system that's protected. So that's the layout of the ceiling plates.
Let me ask you a question. Some of the other manufacturers and entities have actually specified a concrete lid. Is that an advantage to a range owner or disadvantage based off the ceiling plate layout that's typically provided?
That's a huge expense to try to encapsulate the whole structure in concrete, and it's not necessary. We have done over 350 brick and mortar, commercial and private ranges here in the United States. And I can't think of maybe a handful that have gone to that extreme step to do that, where the rest of them have used our ceiling plate layout. They've used an open truss ceiling, regular standard construction, either wood or out of steel, and they haven't had to go to that. They get the full protection of the ceiling with the ceiling plates. So that's an unnecessary expense in our opinion, but each to his own.